Welcome to Stoic Vivu, where ancient wisdom meets modern life. I'm here to help you discover how timeless Stoic philosophy can transform your everyday challenges into opportunities for growth and inner peace. Our mission is simple. Take the profound teachings of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus and make them practical tools you can use right now, today, in your real life. Here's a question that might change everything for you. What if I told you that you have complete control over your happiness, your peace of mind, and your success in life? What if the key to transforming your entire existence isn't changing your job, your relationships, or your circumstances, but simply changing how your mind works? Most people spend their entire lives feeling like victims of their circumstances. They wake up anxious about things they can't control. They get frustrated by other people's behavior. They feel overwhelmed by the constant stream of problems, obstacles, and challenges that life throws at them. They're constantly looking outside themselves for solutions, happiness, and peace. But over 2,000 years ago, a Roman emperor named Marcus Aurelius discovered something revolutionary. While ruling the most powerful empire in human history, dealing with plagues, wars, and betrayals, he wrote in his private journal, "Your life is dyed by the color of your thoughts." This wasn't just philosophical theory. This was practical wisdom born from experience, tested in the crucible of real-world pressure. Epictetus, born a slave who became one of history's greatest teachers, taught that we have a superpower most people never realize they possess. We have complete control over our thoughts, our perceptions, and our responses to everything that happens to us. Everything else, other people's actions, external events, even our own circumstances, is ultimately outside our control. Today, we're going to explore 7 powerful practices that will teach you how to master your mind and transform your life from the inside out. These aren't modern self-help techniques. These are time-tested methods used by emperors, philosophers, and ordinary people for over 2 millennia. They work because they address the fundamental truth about human experience. Your internal state determines everything. We'll discover how your thoughts literally create your reality, why you're the source of your own anxiety, and how you can develop the life-changing power of having no opinion about things that don't matter. You'll learn why every problem has 2 handles, how to see beauty and wonder everywhere you look, and how to transform every obstacle into your greatest advantage. Most importantly, you'll understand that the people who frustrate you the most are actually your greatest teachers, providing perfect opportunities to practice patience, kindness, and wisdom. By the end of this journey, you'll have 7 practical tools that will change how you experience every single day for the rest of your life. 1. How your thoughts create everything you experience. Imagine Sarah, a marketing manager in downtown Chicago, scrolling through LinkedIn during her lunch break. She sees a former colleague posting about their promotion, another friend announcing their new startup success, and an industry peer celebrating their latest achievement. Within minutes, Sarah's mood shifts from contentment to inadequacy. She starts questioning her own career choices, wondering if she's falling behind, and feeling genuinely unhappy about her life. Here's what's fascinating. Nothing in Sarah's actual life changed during those 10 minutes. She has the same job, the same salary, the same loving family, and the same comfortable apartment she felt grateful for that morning. But her thoughts shifted, and suddenly her entire reality feels different. This is the profound truth that Marcus Aurelius understood when he wrote, "Your life is dyed by the color of your thoughts." The Roman emperor recognized that our thoughts don't just reflect our reality, they literally create it. This isn't mystical thinking or wishful philosophy. This is practical psychology that modern neuroscience has confirmed. Our brains interpret reality through the filter of our thoughts, and that interpretation becomes our lived experience. Marcus faced extraordinary challenges during his reign. Plagues swept through the empire, barbarian tribes threatened the borders, and political conspiracies surrounded him daily. Yet in his private journal, he consistently returned to this central insight. The quality of his thoughts determined the quality of his life, not his external circumstances. In one particularly powerful passage, he writes, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself the people you'll deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." At first glance, this seems pessimistic, but Marcus continues, "They are this way because they can't tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own." Notice what Marcus is doing here. He's not denying that difficult people exist. Instead, he's choosing in advance how he'll think about them. He's programming his mind to see their behavior as a reflection of their ignorance, not as a personal attack on him. This mental preparation transforms how he experiences these interactions. Let's return to Sarah's situation with this Stoic insight. When she sees those LinkedIn posts, she has a choice about how to think. She could think, "Everyone else is succeeding while I'm stuck in the same position. I must be doing something wrong. I'm not good enough." These thoughts create feelings of inadequacy, jealousy, and anxiety. Alternatively, she could think, "It's wonderful to see people achieving their goals. Their success doesn't diminish my own path. I'm exactly where I need to be, working toward my own objectives at my own pace." These thoughts create feelings of contentment, inspiration, and motivation. The external stimulus, those LinkedIn posts, remains identical. But the thoughts Sarah chooses determine whether she experiences suffering or satisfaction. Marcus Aurelius practiced this principle daily through what Stoics call the discipline of perception. Every morning, he would prepare his mind by choosing constructive thoughts about the day ahead. Every evening, he would review the day and examine how his thoughts had shaped his experiences. Consider David, a software developer in Austin, stuck in traffic on his way to an important client meeting. He could think, "This traffic is ruining my day. I'm going to be late and look unprofessional. Everything always goes wrong for me." These thoughts create stress, frustration, and anger that will affect his entire meeting. Or David could practice the Stoic discipline and think, "Traffic exists. Getting upset won't make it move faster. I can use this time to review my presentation mentally, practice deep breathing, or simply observe the world around me. I'll arrive when I arrive, and I can call ahead to manage expectations." These thoughts create calm, preparation, and even gratitude for the unexpected reflection time. The traffic situation is identical, but David's chosen thoughts create completely different emotional and physical experiences. His body produces different chemicals, his mind functions differently, and he arrives at his meeting in an entirely different state. This isn't about positive thinking or self-deception. Marcus Aurelius wasn't pretending difficult people were actually wonderful. David isn't pretending traffic doesn't exist. Instead, They're choosing thoughts that serve their well-being and effectiveness rather than thoughts that create unnecessary suffering. Modern neuroscience confirms what Marcus intuited. Our brains are constantly interpreting ambiguous information, and our habitual thought patterns determine those interpretations. When we consistently choose constructive thoughts, we literally rewire our neural pathways, making positive thinking more automatic over time. The practice begins with awareness. Throughout your day, start noticing your automatic thoughts. When something happens, observe your immediate mental response. Are your thoughts helpful or harmful? Do they move you toward your goals or away from them? Do they create peace or suffering? Then, like Marcus Aurelius, practice choosing better thoughts. Not unrealistic thoughts, but thoughts that serve you. When you're stuck in traffic, think about the gift of reflection time. When someone acts rudely, think about their ignorance rather than taking it personally. When you see others' success, think about inspiration rather than comparison. Ultimately, this practice revolutionizes your entire life experience. You stop being a victim of circumstances and become the architect of your own mental state. You realize that while you can't control what happens to you, you have absolute control over how you think about what happens to you. And since your thoughts create your experience of reality, this control over your thoughts gives you control over the quality of your life. Building on this foundation of thought mastery, we can now turn to one of the most common applications of this principle: understanding and conquering anxiety. 2. Master your anxiety by understanding this one truth. Picture Maria, a financial analyst in Manhattan, rushing through LaGuardia Airport. Her flight has been delayed for 2 hours. She has an important presentation tomorrow morning in Los Angeles, and every announcement seems to bring more bad news. Her heart races, her palms sweat, and her mind spirals through worst-case scenarios. The airline is ruining my career, she thinks. This delay is destroying everything I've worked for. But here's the revolutionary truth that Marcus Aurelius discovered while managing an empire. Maria's anxiety isn't actually coming from the delayed flight, the airline, or even the potential consequences for her presentation. Her anxiety is coming from inside her own mind, and once she understands this, she gains the power to change everything. In his personal journal, Marcus wrote one of the most powerful insights about anxiety ever recorded. "Today I escaped my anxiety." Then, catching himself, he corrected this thought. "No, I discarded it, because it was within me in my own perceptions, not outside." This correction reveals everything. Marcus initially thought anxiety was something external that he escaped from, like running away from a dangerous animal. But then he realized the profound truth. Anxiety exists within our own minds, created by our own thoughts and perceptions. Since we create it internally, we have the power to discard it internally. Let's examine what's really happening in Maria's situation. The flight delay is a neutral fact. Planes sometimes experience mechanical issues or weather delays. This is simply reality. But Maria's mind is adding layers of interpretation. This is terrible. This ruins everything. My boss will think I'm unreliable. My career is over. I always have bad luck. These interpretations, not the flight delay itself, create her anxiety. The delay exists outside her control, but her thoughts about the delay exist completely within her control. Epictetus, who understood suffering intimately after spending years as a slave, taught that we must clearly distinguish between what is up to us and what is not up to us. The flight schedule is not up to Maria. The weather is not up to her. The airline's mechanical issues are not up to her. But her thoughts about these things, those are completely up to her. Here's how Maria could apply this Stoic wisdom in real time. Instead of thinking, "This delay is ruining my presentation," she could think, "Flight delays happen. I can call my boss to explain the situation and reschedule if necessary. I can use this extra time to review my presentation materials or catch up on other work." Notice that she's not pretending the delay doesn't exist or that there won't be consequences. She's simply choosing thoughts that reduce her suffering while helping her respond more effectively to the situation. Consider James, a college student in Boston, constantly checking his phone for text responses from friends, romantic interests, and family members. When someone doesn't respond quickly, his mind creates elaborate stories. "They must be ignoring me on purpose. They don't really like me. I said something wrong. Everyone thinks I'm annoying." James believes other people are making him anxious by not responding to his messages. But Marcus Aurelius would help him see that his expectations and interpretations are creating his anxiety. The silence from others is neutral. People have busy lives, dead phone batteries, and different communication styles. James's mind is adding the story that creates his suffering. The Stoic practice begins with recognizing this internal source of anxiety. Throughout your day, when you notice anxiety arising, pause and ask yourself, "What story is my mind telling me right now? What interpretations am I adding to the neutral facts of this situation?" Often, you'll discover that your mind is catastrophizing, imagining the worst possible outcomes and treating them as inevitable. Or you're personalizing, assuming that other people's actions are specifically about you when they're usually about their own lives and circumstances. Take Jennifer, a small business owner in Denver, worried about a client who hasn't paid an invoice that's now 3 weeks overdue. Her mind spirals. "They're definitely not going to pay. My business is going to fail. I'll lose my apartment. I'll have to move back in with my parents." Using Stoic principles, Jennifer could recognize that her anxiety comes from these catastrophic interpretations, not from the factual situation of an overdue invoice. She could think instead, "This client is late with payment. I'll send a professional follow-up email and explore my options. Most clients do pay eventually, and I have other income sources. Even if this particular client doesn't pay, I'll handle that situation when and if it actually happens." The key insight is that anxiety always involves our minds traveling to imaginary futures or rehashing unchangeable pasts. Right now, in this present moment, Jennifer is safe. She has enough money for today. Her business exists today. The catastrophic future she's imagining exists only in her thoughts. Marcus Aurelius practiced returning his attention to the present moment whenever he noticed his mind creating anxiety about future scenarios. He would remind himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This doesn't mean becoming passive or irresponsible. Jennifer should absolutely follow up on the overdue payment and take appropriate business actions. James should reflect on his communication patterns and perhaps develop more realistic expectations. Maria should call her boss and make alternative plans. But they can take these actions from a place of calm effectiveness rather than anxious panic. When we recognize that anxiety comes from our internal interpretations rather than external events, we can choose more helpful thoughts that allow us to respond wisely rather than react emotionally. The practical exercise is simple but revolutionary. When anxiety arises, pause and identify the specific thoughts creating that anxiety. Ask yourself, what interpretation is my mind adding to the neutral facts of this situation? Then consciously choose a more helpful thought. Not an unrealistic positive thought, but a thought that serves your well-being and effectiveness. In essence, mastering anxiety means recognizing that you are not a victim of external circumstances, but the author of your own internal experience. This realization transforms anxiety from an overwhelming force that controls you into a signal that reminds you to examine and adjust your thoughts. With this understanding of internal control established, we can now explore your ultimate superpower, the life-changing ability to have no opinion about things that don't serve you. 3. The life-changing power of having no opinion. Consider Alex, a graphic designer in Portland, scrolling through Twitter during his coffee break. Within 5 minutes, he encounters heated debates about politics, outrage about a celebrity scandal, arguments about the latest social issue, and angry responses to a news story. By the time he closes the app, Alex feels drained, frustrated, and somehow personally invested in conflicts that have absolutely nothing to do with his actual life. This scenario repeats millions of times daily across America, but Marcus Aurelius discovered a revolutionary antidote over 18 centuries ago. In his private reflections, he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Remember, it is not enough to be hit or insulted to be harmed. You must believe that you are being harmed. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind has been complicit in the provocation." The Roman emperor understood something most people never realize. We possess an incredible superpower that can instantly transform our peace of mind. Marcus called it the ability to have no opinion about events that don't directly impact our lives or require our response. But what does having no opinion actually mean? It doesn't mean becoming apathetic or uninformed. It means recognizing that most events in the world, including many that capture our attention and emotional energy, are simply happening, and they don't require our judgment, analysis, or emotional investment. Let's examine what happens in Alex's mind during his Twitter session. He reads about a political controversy happening in Washington, D.C. Immediately, his mind begins categorizing. This is outrageous. Those people are wrong. This proves what I've always thought about politics. I need to share my opinion about this. But here's Marcus Aurelius's insight. That political controversy was happening whether Alex knew about it or not. His opinion about it changes nothing. His emotional investment in it adds nothing productive to his life. His anger about it only diminishes his own peace and effectiveness. Marcus would ask Alex, "Are you a senator who can vote on this issue? Are you a journalist whose job requires covering this story? Do you have any actual influence over this situation?" If the answer is no, then having a strong opinion about it serves no practical purpose while consuming valuable mental and emotional energy. Imagine Lisa, a teacher in Phoenix, getting upset because her neighbor parks slightly over the property line. She spends mental energy throughout the day thinking about this injustice, planning what she'll say to the neighbor, and feeling frustrated about people's inconsideration. Her mind creates elaborate narratives about respect, boundaries, and what this parking situation represents about society. Using Marcus Aurelius's wisdom, Lisa could practice having no opinion about her neighbor's parking. The car is parked where it's parked. This is simply a neutral fact. Her mind is adding all the drama, significance, and emotional charge. She could choose to see the situation as it is. A car positioned in a particular location, nothing more. This doesn't mean Lisa becomes a pushover. If the parking actually causes practical problems, she can address it calmly and directly. But she doesn't need to carry the emotional burden of having strong opinions about her neighbor's character, intentions, or what this situation means about the world. The Stoic practice involves recognizing when our minds automatically generate opinions about neutral events. Throughout your day, notice how often you form judgments about things that have no direct impact on your life. How other people dress, what celebrities do, how strangers behave in public, what you see on social media, or what you hear on the news. Take Michael, a software engineer in Seattle, who gets irritated every morning when he sees people on the subway scrolling through their phones instead of reading books. His mind creates a whole story. People today have no intellectual curiosity. Everyone's addicted to technology. Society is becoming less intelligent. But Marcus Aurelius would point out that other people's reading choices are not asking for Michael's judgment. Their behavior exists independently of his opinion about it. His irritation serves no useful purpose and only diminishes his own peace of mind during his commute. Michael could practice the Stoic discipline by simply observing. Some people are reading phones, others are reading books, some are sleeping, others are looking out the window. No judgment, no story, no emotional investment, just neutral observation of what is. This practice becomes especially powerful with news and social media. Modern media is designed to provoke strong opinions and emotional reactions because engagement drives profits. But Marcus Aurelius understood that most news events are like weather patterns. They happen, they change, and they rarely require our personal involvement or emotional investment. When you see a news story, ask yourself, do I have any actual influence over this situation? Does having a strong opinion about this serve any practical purpose in my life? Or am I simply consuming emotional content that makes me feel involved in events I cannot control? The liberation comes from realizing that you can stay informed without becoming emotionally invested. You can care about important issues without carrying the psychological burden of having opinions about every controversy, scandal, or debate that crosses your attention. Consider Sarah, a marketing manager in Miami, who used to get frustrated every time she heard about corporate scandals, political corruption, or social injustices reported in the news. She would spend hours discussing these issues with friends, feeling angry and powerless about problems she couldn't directly address. After learning this Stoic principle, Sarah began practicing selective opinion formation. She chose to have strong opinions and take action only on issues where she could make a meaningful difference. Local school board elections, volunteer work in her community, and environmental practices at her own company. For everything else, she practiced neutral observation without emotional investment. The result was remarkable. Sarah found herself with more mental energy for the things that actually mattered in her life. She became more effective in the areas where she could make a difference because she wasn't depleting her emotional resources on situations beyond her control. Therefore, the practice is simple but transformative. Throughout your day, notice when your mind automatically generates opinions about neutral events. Ask yourself, does this require my judgment? Can I influence this situation? Does having an opinion about this serve any practical purpose? If the answer is no, practice simply observing without judging. This superpower of selective opinion formation creates profound peace because it stops your mind from carrying the emotional weight of the entire world. You become more effective in the areas where your opinions and actions actually matter because you're not scattering your mental energy across countless irrelevant concerns. Now that you understand the power of neutral observation, we can explore how this same principle applies to one of life's most practical challenges: choosing which perspective to adopt when facing any difficult situation. For why every problem has two amazing handles. Visualize this scenario. Rachel, a project manager in Atlanta, receives an email from her boss at 4:30 p.m. on Friday informing her that the major presentation she's been preparing for months has been moved up from next Thursday to Monday morning. Her initial reaction floods through her mind. This is impossible. My weekend is ruined. My boss doesn't respect my time. This always happens to me. But Epictetus, the ancient philosopher who transformed from slave to teacher, would tell Rachel something that could change her entire experience. Every situation has two handles. One will bear weight, the other won't. Choose carefully which handle you grab. What Epictetus understood through years of hardship was that every single situation we encounter can be approached from multiple perspectives. And the perspective we choose determines whether that situation becomes a source of strength or a source of suffering. Let's examine Rachel's situation through both handles. The first handle, the one that won't bear weight, focuses on what's wrong, unfair, or beyond her control. This timeline is unreasonable. My boss should have given me more notice. My weekend plans are ruined. This proves that management doesn't care about employees. When Rachel grabs this handle, she experiences stress, resentment, and victimhood. Her energy gets consumed by anger rather than productive action. She approaches the weekend feeling defeated before she even begins working on the presentation. The second handle, the one that will bear weight, focuses on opportunity, action, and what she can control. This accelerated timeline shows how important this presentation is to the company. I have a chance to demonstrate my ability to perform under pressure. I can use this weekend to create something exceptional that showcases my skills. When Rachel chooses this handle, she experiences challenge rather than victimhood, excitement rather than resentment, and empowerment rather than helplessness. The situation hasn't changed, but her experience of the situation has been completely transformed. Consider David, a restaurant owner in Nashville, who discovers that his head chef just quit 2 weeks before their busiest season. The first handle presents this as a disaster. We're doomed. The timing couldn't be worse. Good chefs are impossible to find quickly. Our reputation will be ruined when we can't handle the rush. The second handle presents this as an opportunity. This gives me a chance to find an even better chef who might bring fresh ideas to our menu. I can step back into the kitchen myself, which I've missed. Our staff will rally together and show what we're capable of during challenging times. The chef quitting is the same factual event, but David's choice of perspective determines whether he spends the next 2 weeks in panic mode or in creative problem-solving mode. Epictetus learned this principle under the most extreme circumstances imaginable. As a slave, he had no control over his physical circumstances, his daily activities, or even his own body. Yet he discovered that he always retained one fundamental power: the ability to choose how he interpreted and responded to whatever happened to him. He taught that this choice of perspective is the most important decision we make in any situation because it determines not just how we feel, but how effectively we can respond to challenges. Take Jennifer, a marketing consultant in Denver, who loses her biggest client unexpectedly. The weak handle focuses on loss and fear. My income just dropped by 40%. I'll have to cut back on everything. What if I can't find another client this good? This proves how unstable freelancing is. The strong handle focuses on growth and possibility. This frees up time to pursue the type of clients I really want to work with. I can raise my rates for new clients since I've gained more experience. This is motivation to diversify my client base so I'm not dependent on any single account. The lost client represents the same financial reality, but Jennifer's choice of handle determines whether she spends her energy on worry or on strategic business development. The practice begins with recognizing that you always have this choice. When something unexpected, challenging, or unwanted happens, pause before reacting. Ask yourself, what are the two ways I could approach this situation? Which perspective focuses on what I can't control versus what I can control? Which handle will actually help me move forward effectively? Let's examine Mark, a college student in Boston, who doesn't get accepted to his first-choice graduate program. The weak handle creates bitterness. The admissions process is unfair. I'm not good enough. My backup options are settling for less. This ruins my career plans. The strong handle creates motivation. This means I need to strengthen my application for next year. I can use this extra time to gain more experience, improve my test scores, or explore alternative paths I hadn't considered. Maybe there's an even better opportunity waiting that I couldn't see when I was focused on just one option. The rejection letter contains identical information, but Mark's choice of perspective determines whether this setback becomes a source of growth or a source of discouragement. Epictetus emphasized that this skill improves with practice. The more consciously you choose the useful handle in small situations, the more automatically you'll choose it in larger crises. Start with minor inconveniences. Traffic jams, long lines, technical difficulties, or schedule changes. When your flight gets delayed, you can grab the handle of frustration about lost time, or you can grab the handle of unexpected opportunity to catch up on reading, make phone calls, or simply rest. When technology fails during an important video call, you can focus on embarrassment and technical problems, or you can focus on demonstrating grace under pressure and problem-solving skills. The transformation happens when you realize that you're not a victim of circumstances, but an active participant in creating your experience of circumstances. External events will always be mixed, some favorable, some challenging. But your internal experience depends entirely on which handle you choose to grab. Consequently, this practice gives you incredible power over the quality of your life. Instead of being tossed around by whatever happens to you, you become someone who can find opportunity, growth, and even joy in the midst of difficulty. You develop what Epictetus called an invincible spirit, not because nothing bad ever happens to you, but because you've mastered the art of approaching whatever happens from the perspective that serves you best. This perspective mastery becomes the foundation for an even more beautiful practice, training yourself to actively seek and appreciate the extraordinary beauty that exists in ordinary moments. 5. How to see beauty and wonder everywhere. Set the scene. Thomas, an accountant in San Francisco, takes the same commute every morning, a 20-minute walk through downtown streets to his office building. For months, this walk has felt like a tedious routine. Concrete sidewalks, honking traffic, hurried strangers checking their phones, and the same coffee shops and storefronts he passes without really noticing. His mind typically fills this time with worry about the day ahead or replaying yesterday's problems. But Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire from busy Roman streets not unlike Thomas's modern cityscape, discovered something extraordinary about ordinary moments. In his personal reflections, he wrote about finding beauty in the most unexpected places. Observe constantly that all things take place by change. Be in the habit of saying to yourself that change is universal. All things are woven together, and the common bond is sacred. The Roman emperor understood that our capacity for wonder and appreciation isn't dependent on extraordinary circumstances or perfect conditions. Instead, it's a skill we can develop by training our attention to notice the remarkable details that exist in every ordinary moment. Let's transform Thomas's morning walk using Marcus's wisdom. Instead of seeing concrete and crowds, Thomas could notice how morning sunlight creates patterns as it filters between buildings. He could observe the incredible variety of human faces, each representing a unique story and lifetime of experiences. He could appreciate the engineering marvel of the city itself, thousands of people coordinating their movements, infrastructure systems working invisibly to support millions of lives, and the fascinating social choreography of urban life. This isn't about forcing fake positivity or pretending problems don't exist. Marcus faced plagues, wars, and political corruption daily, but he trained himself to also notice what was beautiful, extraordinary, and worth appreciating, even in the midst of difficulty. In one remarkable passage, Marcus writes about finding beauty in natural processes most people would consider unpleasant. Even the foam on a wild boar's mouth has a certain beauty, though no one would want to create it artificially. The way grain droops down as it ripens and the wrinkled skin of an aging face. Many such things are far from beautiful in themselves, yet because they follow naturally from the process of life, they add to its charm and appeal. What Marcus understood was that beauty exists everywhere when we train ourselves to see it. But most people miss it because they're looking for only conventional forms of beauty, or they're too distracted by their internal concerns to notice their external world. Consider Maria, a nurse in Chicago, working 12-hour shifts in a busy hospital. Her days are filled with stress, difficult patients, and life or death situations. Using Marcus's approach, Maria could train herself to notice the extraordinary elements within her challenging environment. The incredible resilience of the human body, the dedication of her colleagues who choose to spend their lives helping others, the quiet moments of connection with patients, and the profound privilege of being present during some of the most important moments in people's lives. This practice doesn't diminish the real difficulties of Maria's work, but it adds layers of meaning and appreciation that make the challenges more bearable and the work more fulfilling. The Stoic discipline begins with intentional attention training. Marcus practiced what he called prosoke, a Greek term meaning continuous attention to the present moment. Instead of letting his mind wander to past regrets or future anxieties, he would actively focus on noticing what was actually happening around him right now. Here's how you can apply this practice immediately. During any routine activity, commuting, grocery shopping, doing laundry, or preparing meals, consciously shift your attention from internal preoccupations to external observation. Ask yourself, what am I not noticing about this moment? What details am I missing because I'm operating on autopilot? Take James, a software developer in Austin, who typically experiences his lunch break as a rushed necessity between morning and afternoon work sessions. Using Marcus's beauty practice, James could transform this time by paying attention to the taste, texture, and aroma of his food, appreciating the global supply chains that brought these ingredients to his plate, or simply observing the play of light and shadow in his office building's courtyard. The practice deepens when you extend it to challenging situations. Marcus wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of? If I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do." He's training himself to see purpose and beauty even in the mundane obligation of starting another workday. This perspective transforms ordinary responsibilities from burdens into opportunities to fulfill his role as a contributing member of society. Let's examine Lisa, a single mother in Phoenix, who often feels overwhelmed by the repetitive demands of caring for her 2 young children. The beauty practice could help her notice the remarkable development happening in her children's minds daily, the trust they show by depending on her completely, and the unique privilege of witnessing their personalities emerging and evolving. Again, this doesn't mean ignoring the real challenges of parenting, but adding awareness of the extraordinary aspects that exist alongside the difficulties. Marcus also practiced finding beauty in transient moments, writing, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." He trained himself to appreciate the temporary nature of experiences rather than mourning their impermanence. A sunset is beautiful partly because it lasts only minutes. A conversation with a friend is precious partly because you'll never have exactly that same conversation again. This perspective transforms how you experience everything from morning coffee to evening conversations with family. Instead of taking these moments for granted or rushing through them to get to something else, you begin appreciating them as unique, unrepeatable experiences. The transformation occurs gradually but profoundly. As you strengthen your attention to beauty and wonder in ordinary moments, you develop what psychologists call gratitude sensitivity, an increased capacity to notice and appreciate positive aspects of your daily experience. Your baseline happiness increases not because your external circumstances improve, but because you become more skilled at recognizing the extraordinary elements that were always present. Essentially, this practice reveals that beauty and wonder aren't scarce resources that you occasionally encounter during special moments or perfect conditions. They're the abundant qualities of ordinary life that become visible when you train your attention to notice them. Every single day contains moments of genuine beauty, connection, and wonder that most people miss because they're distracted by their internal concerns rather than paying attention to their actual present experience. This heightened awareness and appreciation create the perfect foundation for tackling life's most substantial challenges with a completely different mindset. 6. Turn every obstacle into your greatest advantage. Suppose you're Jessica, a small business owner in Dallas, who just discovered that her largest competitor has opened a new location directly across the street from her boutique clothing store. Her initial reaction fills her with dread. This will destroy my business. They have more resources, better marketing, and lower prices. I can't compete with them. I should have never started this business. But Marcus Aurelius, who faced barbarian invasions, political conspiracies, and natural disasters while leading the Roman Empire, discovered one of history's most powerful principles for transforming adversity into advantage. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This isn't motivational rhetoric or wishful thinking. Marcus developed this philosophy through practical experience managing crisis after crisis. He learned that obstacles properly approached don't just test our character, they actually create opportunities that wouldn't exist without the challenge. Let's examine Jessica's situation through this Stoic lens. The competitor across the street forces her to clarify what makes her business unique. She can no longer rely on location convenience alone. This pressure pushes her to improve her customer service, curate more distinctive inventory, create stronger relationships with her clients, and develop marketing strategies she might never have attempted without the competitive threat. 6 months later, Jessica might discover that the competition actually strengthened her business by forcing innovations that attracted more loyal customers than she had before the competitor arrived. The obstacle didn't just become manageable. It became the catalyst for growth she wouldn't have achieved in comfortable circumstances. Marcus understood this principle because he lived it daily. When the plague swept through the Roman Empire, instead of just managing the crisis, he used it as an opportunity to demonstrate leadership, implement social reforms, and develop philosophical insights about mortality and meaning that still influence people today. The plague became a vehicle for his greatest contributions to humanity. Consider Robert, a software engineer in Seattle, who gets laid off from his dream job at a major tech company. The initial devastation overwhelms him. "My career is over. I'll never find another position this good. I've wasted years building expertise that's apparently worthless." Using Marcus's principle, Robert can recognize that this forced transition creates opportunities that wouldn't exist if he'd stayed comfortable in his previous role. He can explore different types of companies, negotiate better compensation, develop new skills, or even start his own consulting business. The layoff removes the inertia that kept him in a situation that might have limited his long-term growth. Many successful entrepreneurs trace their breakthroughs to moments when they lost jobs, faced financial crises, or encountered rejections that forced them to develop capabilities they never would have pursued in comfortable circumstances. The Stoic approach requires shifting from seeing obstacles as things that happen to you towards seeing them as raw material for building something better. Marcus wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But he took this further, recognizing that obstacles often provide exactly the pressure needed to develop strengths that remain dormant during easy times. Take Amanda, a marketing manager in Boston, who develops a chronic health condition that forces her to work from home permanently. Initially, she experiences this as a career limitation. But applying Stoic principles, Amanda realizes this obstacle opens possibilities she hadn't considered. She can work for companies in any location, save money on commuting and office clothes, create a more flexible schedule, and develop expertise in remote team management that becomes increasingly valuable in the modern workplace. The health challenge that seemed like a career obstacle becomes the foundation for a more fulfilling and financially successful professional life. This transformation requires what Marcus called the discipline of action, the practice of responding to obstacles by immediately asking, "How can this situation, however unwanted, become useful? What opportunities does this challenge create? What strengths might I develop by working through this difficulty? Let's examine Carlos, a restaurant owner in Miami, whose business gets shut down for 3 months due to unexpected city construction blocking access to his street. The weak response focuses on victimhood. The city is destroying my business. I'll lose all my customers. This timing couldn't be worse. The Stoic response focuses on opportunity. This gives me time to renovate the interior, develop a catering business, create an online presence, train my staff in new skills, and build anticipation for our reopening. When we reopen, we'll be a better restaurant than we were before the construction started. The construction timeline remains identical, but Carlos's approach determines whether these 3 months become a period of loss or a period of strategic development. Marcus practiced this daily by reframing every setback as training for resilience, every difficult person as practice for patience, and every unexpected change as an opportunity to demonstrate adaptability. He understood that comfortable circumstances often keep us operating below our potential, while obstacles force us to discover capabilities we didn't know we possessed. The practice begins with changing your immediate response to unwanted situations. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "How can I use this?" Instead of focusing on what the obstacle prevents you from doing, focus on what new possibilities it creates. Consider Michael, a college student in Portland who fails to get into medical school on his first application. The traditional response involves disappointment and self-doubt. The Stoic response involves recognizing that this extra year allows him to strengthen his application, gain more clinical experience, explore alternative healthcare careers, or discover that his true calling lies in a completely different field. Many successful doctors trace their best career decisions to rejections that force them to develop broader perspectives and stronger qualifications than they would have achieved through easier paths. The key insight is that obstacles often redirect us toward better outcomes than we would have achieved through our original plans. What feels like failure or setback frequently becomes the foundation for success that wouldn't have been possible without the challenge. Clearly, then, this practice transforms your relationship with difficulty from resistance and resentment to curiosity and strategic thinking. You begin seeing obstacles not as evidence that life is working against you, but as raw material for building the skills, opportunities, and character that create long-term success and fulfillment. This mindset becomes especially powerful when applied to your most challenging relationships and interactions with difficult people. 7. Transform how you see people and change everything. Allow me to set the scene. Kevin, a project manager in Chicago, sits in yet another meeting with his colleague Janet, who constantly interrupts others, takes credit for ideas that aren't hers, and seems completely oblivious to how her behavior affects the team. Kevin's internal monologue runs wild. "She's so selfish and unprofessional. She ruins every meeting. I can't stand working with people like this. Why doesn't management do something about her?" This scenario plays out in offices, families, and communities across America every single day. But Marcus Aurelius, who dealt with senators, generals, and advisors who were often jealous, dishonest, and difficult, discovered a revolutionary approach that transforms how we experience every challenging relationship in our lives. In the opening pages of his personal journal, Marcus writes something remarkable. "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own. Notice what Marcus is doing here. He's not pretending difficult people don't exist or trying to convince himself that everyone is wonderful. Instead, he's preparing himself to see challenging people as opportunities for practicing virtue rather than obstacles to his peace of mind. Let's return to Kevin's situation with this Stoic perspective. Instead of seeing Janet as someone who ruins his day, Kevin could recognize her as his personal trainer for patience, diplomacy, and leadership skills. Every interruption becomes a chance to practice graceful redirection. Every time she takes credit inappropriately, Kevin gets to practice detachment from ego and focus on team results rather than personal recognition. Marcus understood something profound. Difficult people are actually providing us with free training in the exact virtues we need to develop. We can't control their behavior, but we can use their behavior as raw material for building our own character. Consider Lisa, a retail manager in Phoenix, dealing with demanding customers who seem to take their personal frustrations out on her staff. The conventional approach focuses on the customer's rudeness and unreasonable expectations. The Stoic approach recognizes these interactions as masterclass training in emotional regulation, problem-solving under pressure, and maintaining professionalism in difficult circumstances. Every challenging customer becomes Lisa's opportunity to practice what Marcus called sympathia, the recognition that we're all connected and that other people's difficult behavior usually stems from their own pain, ignorance, or circumstances rather than malicious intent toward us personally. Marcus writes, "Whenever you want to cheer yourself, consider the good qualities of your companions. For instance, this one's energy, that one's modesty, another's generosity, and so on. Nothing cheers the heart so much as the examples of the virtues when they are exhibited in the morals of those who live with us." But he also understood that when people aren't exhibiting virtues, they're providing us with opportunities to exhibit our own virtues in response to their challenges. Take David, a software developer in Austin, whose coworker constantly criticizes his code during team reviews in ways that feel personal and demoralizing. David could spend his energy resenting this colleague's communication style, or he could use these interactions to practice receiving feedback without defensiveness, asking clarifying questions instead of reacting emotionally, and demonstrating grace under pressure. 6 months later, David might realize that dealing with this difficult colleague actually prepared him for high-pressure client presentations and made him a more resilient, skilled communicator than he would have become working only with supportive teammates. The Stoic practice involves recognizing that every person who frustrates, annoys, or challenges us is actually offering us free education in exactly the skills we need to develop. Marcus wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself." This doesn't mean becoming passive or allowing others to mistreat you. It means shifting your focus from trying to control or judge other people's behavior to using their behavior as training material for your own growth. Let's examine Maria, a nurse in Miami, working with a doctor who's frequently impatient, dismissive, and demanding. Instead of carrying resentment about his attitude, Maria could recognize these interactions as intensive training in maintaining composure under pressure, advocating effectively for patience, and practicing emotional intelligence in challenging professional relationships. The doctor's difficult personality becomes Maria's personal development program, teaching her skills that make her more effective with all her future colleagues and supervisors. Marcus practiced this approach with everyone from incompetent generals to scheming politicians. He would write in his journal about using their weaknesses and character flaws as reminders to strengthen his own virtues. Their dishonesty reminded him to be more truthful. Their selfishness motivated him to be more generous. Their impatience taught him to practice greater patience. The transformation happens when you realize that difficult people aren't obstacles to your happiness. They're your trainers for developing the exact character traits that create lasting happiness. Every frustrating interaction becomes a gym session for your emotional intelligence, patience, communication skills, and inner strength. Here's the practical application. When someone annoys or frustrates you, pause and ask yourself, what virtue is this person giving me the opportunity to practice right now? How can I use this interaction to become stronger, more patient, more skillful, or more compassionate? If someone is being dishonest, you get to practice integrity. If someone is being impatient, you get to practice calmness. If someone is being selfish, you get to practice generosity. If someone is being critical, you get to practice confidence and emotional stability. The most remarkable discovery is that when you stop trying to change other people and start using their behavior as training material for your own development, your relationships often improve naturally. People respond positively to genuine patience, understanding, and emotional stability, even when they can't consciously articulate why they feel more comfortable around you. Thus, this practice transforms every challenging relationship from a source of stress into a source of growth. You stop being a victim of other people's personalities and become someone who can thrive and maintain inner peace regardless of who you're dealing with. Difficult people become your greatest teachers, providing exactly the lessons you need to develop unshakable character and emotional resilience. These 7 powerful practices create a complete transformation of your mental experience, giving you practical tools for mastering your thoughts, emotions, and responses to everything life presents. You now possess 7 life-changing tools that emperors and philosophers have used for over 2,000 years to create unshakable inner peace and extraordinary resilience. Let's bring this journey together through one final story that demonstrates how all these practices work in harmony. Meet Sarah, a marketing director in Denver, facing what feels like the perfect storm. Her biggest client just canceled their contract. Her teenage daughter is struggling in school and acting out at home. Her aging mother needs increasing care, and her marriage feels strained under all the pressure. 6 months ago, Sarah would have been overwhelmed, anxious, and convinced that life was happening to her rather than for her. But now Sarah approaches this challenging period using everything we've explored today. She recognizes that her thoughts about these situations will determine her experience more than the situations themselves. Instead of catastrophizing about financial ruin, she focuses on the opportunities this client loss creates for pursuing better partnerships. When anxiety about the future starts building, Sarah catches herself and remembers that her worry exists within her own mind, not in external circumstances. She chooses thoughts that serve her effectiveness rather than thoughts that create suffering. Sarah practices having no opinion about things beyond her control. Her daughter's choices, her mother's aging process, or her former client's business decisions. She saves her emotional energy for areas where her influence actually matters. When each challenge appears, Sarah consciously chooses the handle that will bear weight. Her daughter's difficulties become opportunities to strengthen their relationship and model resilience. Her mother's needs become chances to express gratitude and love. Her marriage stress becomes motivation for deeper communication and connection. Throughout this difficult period, Sarah actively looks for beauty and meaning. She notices her daughter's intelligence even when it's misdirected, appreciates her mother's wisdom and life stories, and recognizes the strength of a marriage that's weathering challenges together. Each obstacle transforms into training material. The financial pressure teaches her resourcefulness and creativity. The family stress develops her patience and emotional intelligence. The uncertainty builds her adaptability and faith in her ability to handle whatever comes next. Most importantly, Sarah uses every difficult person and challenging interaction as practice for virtue. When her daughter is disrespectful, Sarah practices unconditional love. When her mother becomes demanding, Sarah practices patience. When her husband seems distant, Sarah practices understanding and communication. The result isn't that Sarah's external circumstances magically improve, but that her experience of those circumstances is completely transformed. She moves through this challenging period with grace, effectiveness, and even joy because she's learned to master her internal world regardless of external conditions. This is the promise of Stoic philosophy. Not that life becomes easy, but that you become unshakably capable of handling whatever life presents. You develop what Marcus Aurelius called an inner citadel, a place of peace and strength that exists within you regardless of external circumstances. Start practicing these 7 principles today. Notice your thoughts and choose better ones. Recognize that anxiety comes from within you, not from outside circumstances. Practice having no opinion about things that don't serve you. Choose the handle that will bear weight in every situation. Train yourself to see beauty everywhere. Transform obstacles into advantages. Use difficult people as your personal trainers for virtue. Your transformation begins the moment you decide to take control of your internal world. Subscribe to Stoic Vivu for more ancient wisdom that changes modern lives. Like this video if it gave you practical tools you can use today. Share it with someone who needs these timeless insights for handling contemporary challenges. Your journey toward unshakable inner strength starts now.